Good afternoon. I'm Attorney Ben Crump, and along with Attorney Seth Miller, who is the director of the Florida Innocence Project, and Attorney Sue Ann Robinson and Precious Chavez, we have the true honor of representing the family of Leonard Cure. Beside me is his beautiful mother, Mary, whose heart is truly broken today, especially after everything that her baby boy has had to endure in fighting against a wrongful conviction of a Jim Crow justice system, only to be exonerated and have his life claimed by Jim Crow bigoted policing, in their opinion. Also present with us today, and you will hear from a couple of them, is his siblings. You have Angela, Tina, Maria, Michael, and Wallace, his brothers and sisters. You also have his Aunt Julie here, who are trying to stand in support of Miss Mary, who, despite having health issues today, came up from Port St. Lucie, Florida, yes, to be able to tell you all that she is demanding justice for her son, Leonard Cure. So let's just state the obvious. And you're going to hear from Seth Miller in just a few minutes about how Leonard fought for the better part of his life for justice. Yes. Can you imagine being wrongfully convicted for a crime you did not commit? Miss Mary reminds me of what my grandmother taught me when I was a little boy. She said, what's worse than a lie? Yes. That is telling the truth and having nobody believe you.
Absolutely.
Miss Mary is going to talk to you all about how it caused him severe psychological trauma. Yes. And how she always worried about the effect that wrongful conviction had on Leonard Cure. And the fact that for years they kept trying to say he's innocent. And until they got with the brave, courageous lawyers from the Innocence Project, yep, it seemed like he was just another black man, yep, caught up in the racist criminal justice system.
Over and over.
In America.
Justice for Leonard.
It keeps happening.
Justice for Leonard. In America.
And then after the Innocence Project and the Broward County State's Attorney Harold Pryor and the Integrity Unit proved beyond a reasonable doubt that he was completely innocent of these trumped up allegations. Yes. He was starting his life over again. He had just got compensation from the state of Florida, a mere pittance of what they stole from him.
Peanuts. Peanuts.
Peanuts.
But he was trying to make the best of the situation, his second chance at life, at liberty. He had bought a home in Atlanta, Georgia. He was looking forward to going to college, getting a degree. I tell you, people are so devastated that this happened to Leonard. The people, the lawyers working in the Broward County State Attorney Office, because they said Leonard was such a breath of fresh air. He would call on a regular basis and tell them, please continue to do what you all are doing. Innocence Project, please do what you all are doing, because you all are doing God's work. Yes. Keep doing what you're doing, because I was not the only innocent person in prison who was facing these injustices. Yes. And so it is God awful that he would escape that injustice, to have his life claimed by more bias as I talked to his brother Michael, we were just talking and said we absolutely do not believe if he was a white citizen, he would have been killed for a traffic stop.
We don't believe, we know. We know he would not
been
have been
proven.
killed if he were white.
And so we're here demanding
Justice.
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 And we know to get to that justice, it's going to be built on truth and transparency. So we want the video to be released immediately. I understand Wallace, he was on Facebook Live.
He was live streaming it when it went down.
And his Aunt Julie and his mother were always worried about him. His exoneration was all over the media. They was always worried, and you're going to hear from Miss Mary's mouth, always worried that the police are going to do something to Leonard.
Yes.
And so they got him a video and told him he had to have a video in his car so he can video everything because she had this anxiety. This was her worst fear.
Yes.
Now that he proved that they lied on him before, that the police was gonna do him in.
Yeah.
This was her worst fear. And so whoever took down that live stream from Facebook, whether it was law enforcement or whether it was the Facebook company, we think it's only proper
Yep.
Transparent.
Put it
for
back.
transparency to put that
Yeah.
live stream back up on his page so everybody could see
What's going on?
what's going on and what happened in the last moments of Leonard Cure's life. Transparency, truth, justice. If anybody deserves truth and justice,
He does.
if anybody deserves truth and justice, after what he went through, being wrongfully convicted and spending over 16 years in a iron box, it is Leonard Cure. It is Leonard Cure. So at this time, you're going to hear from a man who I'm proud to know, because not only is he a great lawyer, he's a great human being. He's a compassionate human being. For every Leonard Cure that happened in an exoneration, there are a dozen more that he
Yep.
fights for tirelessly.
Yes.
And they care about their lives. They become friends. They become family. And Seth Miller is family. I'm proud to be on the Innocence Project board, and I see how he fights to make the wrongs right when nobody else seems to care, and how devastated he was when we talked on the phone on Monday night. And so, Seth, if you could share with them the journey of Leonard's wrongful conviction and his right for exoneration before we hear from the family. Mr. Seth Miller, a real hero. A real hero.
Thank you, Ben. Leonard Cure was wrongfully convicted of a 2003 Broward County armed robbery and was sentenced to life in prison. His case is unique, and Ben alluded to it. His case is unique because oftentimes we have to fight with the authorities to gain justice, but the state attorney's office in Broward created what's called a conviction integrity unit, and that is an independent unit within the prosecutor's office where the prosecutors take requests of people who claim they're wrongfully convicted and independently, objectively review those cases and work with defense attorneys collaboratively to demonstrate that the person's innocent, there's been a wrongful conviction, and move swiftly to get them out of prison. And Leonard, because he fought for over 16 years to have anyone listen to him. He wrote to my project, he wrote to the state attorney's office, and as one of its, and everyone, as one of its first cases after the conviction review unit opened was Leonard Cure's case. And we, the folks at the state attorney's office, folks at my office, collaboratively reinvestigated that case. And what we found was incontrovertible evidence of his actual innocence. At the time that the crime was supposed to be happening, it was an armed robbery at a Walgreens in Broward County, Florida. Leonard Cure had an ATM receipt from going to get money out from an ATM miles away, right around the time of the crime, on his way to his job. On his way to his job. He woke up that day to go to work, to do what we all do every day, and that day ended with him being arrested for a crime he didn't commit, prosecuted not in one trial but 2 trials
Yes.
for a crime he didn't commit, and sentenced to life. And it took a collaborative effort, right? A lot of these, I hear all the time, oh, this person got out on a technicality. There is no technicality here. Incontrovertible evidence of actual innocence, and it was the prosecutors who prosecuted him, that office, same office that moved to vacate his conviction,
Absolutely.
put it in front of the court reviewed all the evidence and said this person is actually innocent and vacated his conviction
My Lord.
by law, and he was exonerated in 2020. But that isn't where it stopped. We moved to have the state of Florida compensate him, and in the process of that compensation, in that process, we had to go in front of another body within the legislature, where it was our burden to prove that Leonard was innocent by clear and convincing evidence. Took a whole day's worth of testimony. Those folks at the legislature reviewed all the same evidence, and they concluded that he was innocent of that armed robbery by clear and convincing evidence, and the state of Florida passed a bill compensating him, which was signed by Governor Ron DeSantis. There can be no other conclusion that he was actually innocent of the crime that he was wrongfully convicted of. He is an exoneree. He is someone that was failed by the system once, and he has again been failed by the system. He's been twice taken away from his family. And just on a personal note, and then I'll turn it back over, I and my team got to know Leonard over the course of our representation. We did not get, a lot of us didn't get to meet him in person until after he got out, because it was in the middle of COVID. But after that, we built a relationship with him, helping him reintegrate back into society. And he, like many of my clients, their biggest fear is that at a moment's notice, there's going to be law enforcement on the other side of that front door or at a traffic stop who is going to, without cause, for something they didn't do, send them back right where they worked so hard to get out of. And I can only imagine that must have been what he was thinking during this traffic stop. Leonard was a great guy, a friend of our project, a family member of our project, a friend of my family. The Leonard I knew was a good person, a person of goodwill, who would call me to ask me questions about how my life was. I'm fine, but he was always checking in on me. He was a good person who deserved to get home on Monday. He deserved to get home safely on Monday. His life mattered. Leonard's life mattered.
And Leonard deserves justice.
Justice for Leonard.
Justice for Leonard.
Justice for Leonard.
Justice for Leonard. Thank you so much, Seth Miller.
Michael.
A lot of times the criminal justice system profiles certain citizens because the color of their skin, and we truly believe that was the case in his wrongful conviction. We want the video to see what you said, Mike, if that was the case here, because how many times can Leonard present that he's a good person without people judging him because the color of his skin, trying to project their stereotypes onto him? Seth says something that is mind-boggling. How do you trust police again once they lied on you and put you in a metal box for over 16 years, and then on the side of the road they start telling you, oh, we're going to be good guys and we're going to take you back to the metal box, but don't worry about it because the justice system is going to treat you fairly and equally. How can Leonard Cure trust them? A lot of us will never, ever be able to imagine what was going through his mind. But if you were in a metal box for those many years knowing you were innocent, how do you trust any officer on the side of the road saying, well, I'm just going to put you in jail, but don't worry, you'll be out tomorrow? How could you trust them? At this time, you're going to hear from a great leader here in Camden County. He's helped out on many cases here in Camden County. He knows the lay of the land, and I'm so grateful that he's here educating me and the legal team, and especially Leonard's family, on what happens in Camden County. And that is the great president of the Camden County NAACP, Tim Bessett.
Good morning. Let's be clear. There is a problem here in Camden County with law enforcement. This is not the first incident, and we do understand it won't be the last. We want the Cure family to know that we are here with you until the end. We are asking for transparency. This is not the first incident that the Camden County Sheriff's Department have been involved in. And my question is, how many times just doing a routine traffic stop
Tell them, Tim.
where individuals have
Tell
to
them,
be
Tim.
assaulted
That part right there. Yes.
and
Routine
Mr.
damage stop.
Leonard actually being killed
Routine stop.
due to a routine traffic stop? There are a lot of questions that need to be answered. And right now, it seems like the Sheriff Department is not communicating with this family, but we desire answer. The community desires answer. The climate that's in Camden County now, black and brown people don't trust the police. We cannot deny that. We cannot put our head under a rock and act like it does not exist in Camden County. Let's be clear. It has been so bad in our community with law enforcement. The insurance carrier
Tell them, Tim.
dropped the county from their insurance because of so many lawsuits being filed against the law enforcement. That's an indication right there that there is a problem in Camden County.
Major problem. Atrocious.
So we are saying it's time for change. We are demanding change. Something has to be done here in Camden County. Department of Justice need to be involved. And listen, police and brown and black people, law enforcement shouldn't always feel like we are a threat because of the color of our skin.
Yeah.
So we're saying that there's a problem in Camden County. The NAACP have been made aware of numerous occasions that involve law enforcement. Ask them for the records. You'll find out the lawsuits that have been settled and the lawsuits are now pending. So we are still saying we demand justice for Mr. Leonard Cure and for this family. Thank you.
No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. And what you're suggesting is that there's a pattern and practice of excessive force against black and brown citizens. And the Sheriff's Department needs to address that matter. And Miss Mary, the one thing we vowed to do is to turn over every stone to see if they executed your son because they thought his skin color made him a criminal. Because as Seth said, he was absolutely not a criminal. It had been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Just because you're black should not be the determining factor whether you get a death sentence for a traffic stop.
On the side of the damn road.
So At this time, you're going to hear from the people who knew Leonard Cure best. His siblings and his mother, the person who watched him come into this world. And tragically, is going to have to bury him as he leaves this world. But before she speaks to you all, we're going to have his big brother, Michael Cure, address you.
Thank you, sir. My name is Michael Cure, and I'm one of the older brothers of Leonard Cure. Let me tell you a bit about my brother. My brother was an exceptional individual. He did not harm anyone. In fact, after being wrongfully convicted for 16 years, you know what he did? He forgave the idiots that locked him up. That is what he did. That is how forgiving he was. I'm not that forgiving, but he is, and he was.
Wow, remarkable.
And I could tell you a bit more about my brother. He was charismatic, extremely intelligent, and he was a man of integrity, if nothing else. My brother mattered to us.
That's right.
He had dreams, aspirations, and goals. For 17 years, my mother and I traveled up and down Florida to different prisons visiting him. We never abandoned him or turned our backs on him. Yeah. We stuck with him throughout this ordeal, and that is exactly what it was, an ordeal that I, along with my family and my mother, had to endure. So yes, he was locked away, but so were we. Because we loved him. 17 years of no Christmases with him, no Thanksgivings with him, no birthdays with him, thanks to this injustice in this country. Yes, he may have been speeding or whatever. I don't know the circumstances because they haven't revealed it to us, but he did not deserve to die. Was he an angel? Was he perfect? Absolutely not. But whatever it is he did, it did not warrant him being dead. It did not, and it's incredible. And it's so unfortunate that I, along with my family, have to stand here before you today in this unfortunate club that these officers create for us. We're now one of those families. How unfortunate is that? And you all should be tired of coming to these family events where these officers continue to kill black people. You should be tired of it.
Yeah.
I am.
Exhausted.
I'm tired of seeing this man standing and representing families of people who are wrongfully assassinated, because that is what they are. They are murdered at the hands of law enforcement. People who are claimed to be sworn to protect and serve. They are hunters and killers. That is what they are. This country has an epidemic with guns, yes, and it starts with law enforcement.
Tell the truth.
They don't have a problem killing, especially men of color. And how is it or why is it? And I can tell you how or why it is, because it's tolerated. You cannot change what you tolerate. You cannot. And it needs to change.
No justice.
Not in America.
Tell them about how they kept offering them pleas.
Yes, when they first approached my brother and arrested him, twice they offered him 5 years, a plea deal, and then they reduced it to 3 years, and he refused to accept it because he was innocent. And I, along with my family, believed him because we know our brother. My mother knew her son. He was truly a man and a man of integrity. He had better things to do, and at that time, he was living with me, getting up 5 o'clock in the morning to take 2 buses to Broward County to work. And guess what else? He also was at the ATM and gave me the receipt. And so when I had the receipt, my mother and I went to the bank to get the video of the ATM transaction. And the bank manager told us Broward County sheriffs retrieved the video. When we went to Broward County to ask them about it, oh, what video? We never received a video. Liars. Liars, absolute liars. So it was intentional. It was absolutely intentional. And it's so unfortunate that this continues today in this country. It's so sad that this is what we have to endure. I, as a black man, still worry daily when I'm driving. And I'm traumatized each and every time a police officer gets behind me, because I have to wonder, is today my day? So again, here we are, one of those families, thanks to the Camden County Sheriff's Department. And I am outraged. I'm just so outraged Again, Leonard was forgiving. I'm not so forgiving.
Justice for Leonard.
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 Thank you so much, Michael, for telling America who your little brother really was.
Yes.
And before your mother speaks, we're going to hear from his other brother, Wallace Cure, to talk about his brother and how they're going to continue to fight for justice to the end.
My brother was a gentle person. My brother was a loving person. He did not deserve this bullshit. How many times as taxpayers are we going to have to endure hardships at the hand of law enforcement? You wonder why black men don't want to sign up for the military? Because we're not treated as equal citizens. You want to know why we act the way we are? Because we're not treated as equal citizens.
Justice for Leonard.
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 Obviously, this is very emotional,
Completely.
and so this family is bearing their hearts just a few days after their brother was killed on the side of the highway for what was a routine traffic stop. People are stopped for speeding every day. It shouldn't equal the death sentence because you're a black person in Camden County. The person who knows Leonard best his whole life, the lady who fought throughout the ordeal that Seth and Michael talked about, of knowing your child, knowing he was innocent, but yet missing so much time while he was locked in that box. How many birthdays she missed from with her son, how many Mother's Days, how many Christmases, how many family reunions.
Absolutely. 17 years in prison wasn't enough. They took 17 years of his life, so they literally had to take his life.
You gonna take it off, man?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Miss Mary Kerr, Leonard's mother.
Good afternoon. My name is Mary Cure. Leonard Cure is my son. Before I wrote down what I want to say to tell you guys, I did that because I may get emotional and I want you all to hear what I have to say about the system. Leonard did all that time in prison. He was assaulted. He was stabbed in his back pretty near his kidney. I had to fight to get information on that because frequently I was told, Leonard is an adult. I said, he's my son. I have a right to know if he's okay. And so I ended up having threatened to call the media before I could find out if he was dead or alive. I went to prison so many times because my son suffered from so much abuse. The first time that he was ever in confinement, he went because he was praying. They locked him up because he was praying. My son has a tetragrammaton on his arm. I don't know if you guys, Jewish guys, know what this is. And he had a circle there with God's name and Yahweh. He was a faithful believer, and they hated that. But he will never, ever recant his religion. He was never going to deny that. He was not going to compromise himself and say, I did that to walk free. That is not how I raised my 8 children. I raised them alone. They're smart. They went to school. I graduated from college. We were all in school together.
Correct.
And I taught them as best I could. We didn't come from a wealthy background, but we chose to live with integrity. That's what we chose.
Yes,
We
ma'am.
chose education over the streets.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not saying that my children are saints, but I love them. And I want to tell you this in case a few unprofessional words slip out here. I'm what you might want to call a schizophrenic Christian. I'll meet you where you are. But don't think you can come to my side and persecute me, because I'm not having it.
Amen.
And for my son, I will get justice. For all that time he was there, I spent money, ran up and down the road, renting cars. Every birthday, his birthday, and holidays and my birthday, I spent it at the prison with him. I never went to a family reunion out of those years with my other children because I was there. Because he didn't do well incarcerated. And it bothered him so much because I didn't do it. I didn't do it. The last time he went to court before they gave him life, I actually saw the judge and the prosecutor laughing like this was a joke. My son moved near Mr. Gordon, who was his public defender, and he leaned over to whisper something to him, ask him something, and the judge stopped and he said, Mr. Gordon, if you want to have a love affair, you need to take it someplace else.
Absolute racism.
That's what he said.
Just
The
ridiculous.
same judge was the one who read over the charges and stuff, and there was an identification problem in there. And if the identification problem exists, there can be no charges. Why is he in jail? The judge said that, but he said it doesn't measure up to the point that we can't try him. What does that mean? What does that mean? Do you know how many times I've
Racist
gone to
system.
see him? I would call and say, am I going to be able to see him? Sometimes they told me, sometimes they didn't. Sometimes I drove all that way, because at first I was in Miami, to see my son, always far away. Many times I had to go alone because my other children were working. There was no one to go with me. I was fearful, but for my son, I laid down my life for my son. So I would get there and they would tell me, oh, you can't see him today. I was like, what? Well, you can't see him today. He's in confinement, or something happened on the compound and we just didn't call you. Okay. All right. So Leonard came down on the weekend. I live in Port St. Lucie. He came down to see me. As I told Mr. Crump earlier, that Leonard was very much into physicality. He worked out, he ate healthy and all that, and he was convinced that my illness, whatever they were, would go away if I would only stick with his regimen that he had. I had to tell him sometimes, son, I'm not 16. I'm almost 80 years old. He said, but I'm telling you, if you eat right and you do what I tell you, I guarantee you, you'll be able to run a mile. I said, well, when the hell that's going to happen? But nevertheless, he said, if you don't make it, I'll carry you. I said, okay. So we spent time together, and he was leaving. That was early Monday morning, and I don't know, I may have been in the kitchen doing something when he left. He left, and he called me back, and he said to me, he said, Mom, remember the book. He was holding up the Bible. He said, because man's law doesn't mean anything. This does. He always said that. And then he said, I love you, and I'll see you soon. That's the last I heard from him. I was uneasy every time he left, because I was like, will he get a traffic stop? Is he going to be a victim of that? Because from the time that he was released, he was never set free. I lived in constant fear. Every time the phone rang and he wasn't home, even if he was at work, is this going to be the day that they're going to lock him up, beat him up, or kill him? I lived with that. I lived with that. That is torture.
For many black
You know,
people.
when my son was released from prison, he did not want to talk about all the bad things that happened to him. One morning I fixed breakfast for him, and I was standing there because I used to tell him, you can get it out, you can talk to me. You can always talk to me. And so I was standing with my hand on his shoulder. He leaned on me like this, and he just turned his face into my chest and just broke down crying. He said, they took my life. They took it. I was in school, I was working, I was doing fine. I am never going to have a wife and children. That's a rare possibility. And the way it's looking, I'm not going to have that. So it's the thing of the state of Florida thinks that if I give you a few coins, what he got was equal to $50,000 a year.
Correct.
How the hell do you give somebody $50,000 a year for their life? Every month he got a letter that he give to tell you when your release date is. You know what they said? 999. You know what that means? You're not getting out. You are going to die here. That's the friggin' torture he went through. Those are the statements that I had to read. They were never considered, well, I don't know if this family has money, because if you don't send your child money and they don't get food, I mean, it's never enough. So I made sure he could call me. I made sure I was visible. And I made sure that I would do everything that I could for him. When I ran out of money trying to get an attorney before I ran into the Innocence Project, I sat down myself. I got law books. I helped to put a 2254 together.
Yes,
Rid of
ma'am.
Hayes. I did that.
Yes, you did.
Amen.
I did that. I did that for my son. So the last lawyer that we got, Mr. Genova, he asked my other son, who's also deceased and not a criminal. He was a chemistry major. He died from natural causes, Patrick Cure. Patrick met Genova. That's how we got to know him. And so Mr. Genova, after we done paid him like almost $30,000, and he said, okay, you have to do something to make them believe that Leonard is innocent. I said, he is innocent. I said, okay, what do you want me to do? He said, well, let's give him a polygraph test. $2,500. I paid it. So after the results came back, because he didn't pass it because of what was going on in the prison when the polygrapher got there, he didn't pass it. So he calls me on the phone that afternoon and he says to me, I'm dropping the case because your son is a liar. Wow. That's what he said to me. I said, after all of this time, that's what you want to tell me, and you don't have the gall to stand in my face and tell me that? You promised Patrick, my son, and you promised me that you believed in him, because all the legal work that you have, I did that, and I gave it to you. You had to do nothing but present that. Is it such a bad thing that his mom would take the time to try to defend her son? I'm not a lawyer. Yeah, I went to college. I'm a nurse. But I'm not a lawyer. But for my child, I'll go to hell for my child, especially when he's right.
You tell him, Mama.
That's what I will do.
And tell him about when
Yeah.
the police showed up at your house.
Okay, so on Monday, I'm in the room, and I look out, and I see these 3 cops coming. My heart just suddenly just dropped. I knew it. So I go, they're knocking on the door. I go to the door, and I look at them. I said, is he okay? And they were looking at me. They didn't say anything. Then they persisted on coming in. I said, no. I said, this is about Leonard. I want to know if he's okay. They didn't say. I said, Leonard is dead. I said, I want to know who killed him. Did he commit suicide? No. Who killed him? They stood looking. I said, police has killed him. Before they could tell me. How do I know that? Because I lived with that fear, and so did he. We all live with that. If I saw a cop in a uniform pass my house, I was a nervous wreck. That was a nightmare. I have my child twice, and you fucking take him? You take him and leave him laying on the ground like he's nothing? We've been through this. I hate Georgia. The hell that my mother, that my father, we were sharecroppers here. They treated my dad like garbage.
Shit.
Yeah, come on, Mama.
Okay, sorry, but this is my baby. And I want justice for him. And I want the world to know that Leonard Cure is my son, my baby. He's not a liar. There was no reason. I don't know what happened out there, but I can tell you this. There was nothing so bad that he deserved to die. You didn't have to shoot to kill. He has arms and he has legs. You're a trained marksman. That's your job. You should be good at it.
They didn't have to shoot at all.
Yeah, but if they chose to shoot, then they should have found another spot. Okay, I'm going to read to you my final words here, okay? My heart is broken and my soul aches from the sudden disconnect of the bond my son and I shared. Leonard Cure, my son, was an exceptional person. After spending 17 years behind bars for a crime he did not commit, he actually found a place to smile. I don't know where he found the strength to persevere. I watched, cried, and prayed daily as he struggled to grasp and will those precious moments that were stolen from him into some semblance of order. Day by day and hour by hour, I stood with tears in my eyes. Alarms and anxiety were present 24 hours a day. They became a permanent fixture in his life and mine. To witness the agony, God stood by Leonard's side while he tried desperately to fit into a world gone mad. At some point, he realized that time had actually left him behind, or so it seemed. Leonard was a very smart man. He wanted to know and learn everything there was to know about technology. Leonard came home, and I was over the moon because I thought he was finally free. My baby was free. I'm happy. But the truth of the matter is that Leonard never came home. The system was ecstatic. They had a clone. They had created, could do almost anything, almost human. He functioned like one. To the system, I now find you guilty. Guilty of premeditated kidnapping, extortion with plans to kill the very clone that you created. The trust that I once held for a system is gradually slipping away. I tried to deactivate all the negativity sensors that were installed into his brain. I took my heart and soul and mixed it with tears and prayers. I personally walked that mixture down Heartbreak Road, made a final turn into Tornado Alley. I stood silently and watched. Here is my message to the system. There are eyes watching and documenting all that you do. Your mission is not complete, and it will never be complete. So says the true and living God. Thank you.
No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace.
Justice for Leonard.
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 Thank you so much, Miss Mary, for letting the world see the humanity in your son.
Yes.
One that was denied for him in the wrongful conviction, and we believe was denied to him on the side of this road.
There's one more thing I'd like
Yes,
to say.
ma'am.
May I? I want to speak to the notion of racism, and this is for everybody. If you would sit down and think, every nationality went to war. Why? To keep us all free. If you could keep that in your head, how could you kill a man or hate somebody because they are the ones that keep us free and saved our lives? How could that be? All it takes is a little time to sit down and just think. That's all. Just think.
Yeah.
Thank
and,
you.
And treat Leonard like you would your brother, because we are brothers and sisters in the eyes of God. And if they could have saw Leonard like that
If they
on
knew
the
him,
side of
they
the
gave him a
road in
chance.
Camden County, Leonard would still be here today helping people get their freedom. Because that's what he was committed to, helping others who was locked in that cage get their freedom. At this time, we'll take some of your questions if you have any.
Yes, first I want to ask, so the Camden County Sheriff's Office, they released maybe an hour ago, that they're releasing that video, body camera and dash camera video today at 4 o'clock. They say what it'll show is him driving over speeds of 100 miles per hour. And they're saying that there is probable cause for the use of excessive force. Does that change anything from what you all have said here today?
Not at all. So many times we've seen where white citizens break the laws in incredible ways. I mean, you have young white mass murderers who they know are confirmed mass murderers, and yet they take them alive. Why is it different when it's a black man doing a traffic stop? And so we want to see that video. We want to see what things they did to try to de-escalate the matter versus escalating the matter. We want to see if they in any way had reason to fear for their life where they had to use deadly force. The family is not convinced that you're going to see that.
And what about the details from the GBI of them saying, you know, at first he was complying,
Correct.
and that it was when he was told he was going to be under arrest, placed under arrest for speeding and reckless driving, that's when he started not to comply, that they ended up tasering him twice and using a baton. What about those details?
I'm going to say this. I'm going to have Seth Miller, who deals with a lot of exonerees, this notion, this psychological effect on your mind when you've been wrongfully convicted, and then they're talking about taking you back to the cage. I mean, it's psychological at that point. We can only imagine what went through Leonard Cure's head when you had police officers who were putting them in handcuffs just like they did almost 20 years ago. You can only imagine. So I think Seth and then his brother Michael could speak to that.
No, I mean, Ben, you spoke eloquently about it. I mean, I've worked with dozens of exonerated people, represented them here in Florida, met many exonerated people from all over the country. And to a person, their biggest fear is being carted off back to jail for something they didn't do again. And that is the context that I think is important for us to understand when anyone in this situation has an interaction with law enforcement. There is a trauma that comes with the miscarriage of justice of being wrongfully convicted and wrongfully incarcerated. And that is a trauma that is carried with an exonerated person every day of their life. And it's a huge fear. I can only imagine what Leonard was thinking about in that moment. Let me tell you, even the facts as they were released by GBI don't justify someone not making it out of that traffic stop alive. Do not justify. We can't just shoot people indiscriminately. We understand there are multiple law enforcement officers there. It's hard for us to understand how they cannot be subdued without taking lethal force. And we'll look forward to seeing the video and make our own judgments there.
and before Michael says a word about that, but just like they take these young white supremacists alive who actually kill people, Leonard didn't kill anybody.
Ever.
Just how they take them alive, why can't they take our black and brown brothers alive? Why is it always this shoot first mentality? We gotta shoot to control the situation. No, you had multiple officers there. We know he didn't have a weapon. And how do we know that? If he had a weapon, what's the very first thing would have been in that report? Very first thing. So
He was armed.
there's no way to justify the unjustifiable act yet again for killing a black man because the color of his skin during a routine traffic stop. I'll let Michael.
Absolutely. And according to GBI, he assaulted one of the officers. If there were multiple officers there and they tased him twice and beat him with a baton and he was still able to gain power over them, then perhaps they should go back to combat training, which is what I believe they should receive in the first place. But if he's able to beat all three of them, you still have to use excessive force. How about calling for more backup?
And the other thing I would say is this: we got to see the video.
Absolutely.
I don't think you're going to see him trying to engage police. If anything, like most black people, we're trying to
Get
run
away.
from the police.
Absolutely. Get
So
away.
why shoot a person trying to get away from you? I mean, you got his tag number. You know, you don't have to shoot him. You will get him. Why use the most lethal force available to you? I mean, it's just troubling on many levels. Thank you for the question.
Have you guys talked to Camden County or GBI about this live stream video and if and when and how and who took it down and where it is or anything like that?
You know, that's the question. His brother and everybody was
Okay.
saying, who took the live feed? Go ahead.
Well,
Mike.
actually, one of the officers yesterday did say he was well aware that when they stopped Leonard, he had his phone in his hand and he was live streaming, but he would not elaborate. He would not answer any more questions other than we understand he was live streaming. And so we would like to know, where is the stream?
Took down his video.
Yeah,
Where's
who took
the
down his video?
Facebook stream?
Who deleted his accounts?
Would they have to have a subpoena or a judge's search
That's
warrant to
that's
face
also
him?
what the officer claimed, that they would release his property to us, but they may have to keep the phones to get subpoenas or warrants to check the phone.
And that's to us always seems like a delay tactic.
Absolutely.
I mean, it seems to try to delay as long as you can. Hopefully people forget about it and it's swept under the rug. I don't know what authority they would have had if they did take the
Correct.
Facebook
If they
feed
did.
down. What authority Camden Sheriff's Department would have to do that, to go into his phone and do that. We don't know what happened, but it seems like that is one possible scenario, that they took the feed down. And as his mother said, transparency. We have a right to see and hear what happened the last moments of her child's life.
Is there,
I
was there
have one
anybody else
thing.
who said or any other way that y'all know that he was live streaming?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we have
Family,
relatives that he was communicating with that called us immediately and said, hey, he was live streaming. He was talking about the police stopping him. So we know for a fact that he was live streaming. And again, the officer confirmed it yesterday from GBI.
And they said they saw it on Facebook.
Well, he did not say that much. He just said he knew that he was. And I'm certain if he were live streaming and they shot him while the phone was in his hands, it definitely was unlocked.
Hold
Give-
on.
give it-
I think Miss Mary wanted
I
to say.
just wanted to say one thing here. None of us were there. We don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. And quite frankly, I may never know what happened. But this I'd like to say. I don't feel, no matter what happened, that he should have been killed.
No matter what.
That's the bottom line. That's the gist of it all. His life should not have been taken because there was a legal infraction. Nobody deserves to die like that.
Yes, ma'am. They can't be the judge, jury, and executioner.
Has the sheriff's office reached out to your family at all to have conversations with you about what happened? And then what message do you have for the sheriff?
Absolutely. According to them, they called this morning and told us that we could come and view the video at 3 o'clock. And then at 4 o'clock, we will also have a meeting with the DA, and he'll discuss the process from here, whether he'll pursue charges against the officer or not, or he'll drop the case, one or the other. So we're still a bit in the dark. Now, we did go to them yesterday. They were a bit quite vague and quite ambiguous with us. You know, they weren't really forthcoming with information. Oh, you know, it's pending investigation, so there's so much information we cannot answer. However, today they called and they were quite forthcoming with information. And because they put us off, postponed his autopsy and us retrieving his property until Friday. But all of a sudden today, it's now readily available.
Who's conducting the autopsy?
Savannah? GBI? But they said it was sitting under Savannah.
No, well, we may very well have an independent autopsy.
We have to.
Conducted, especially depending on the number of times he was shot and so forth. So it's so many things that are unknown to the family that they deserve the right to know.
Now, what are the next steps? As an attorney, how far do you plan on taking this case?
But certainly, as we did with all the cases here, Ahmaud Arbery, most recently George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Tyree Nichols, now in Memphis, we think this case is just as egregious because when you put it in context of what Leonard Cure had endured, he should not have been killed like this by the people who had the obligation to protect and serve him. I mean, they failed him in Broward County, and the family certainly believes they failed him here in Camden County, Georgia. And so we're gonna push until we get justice. It's about truth, transparency, and that's how we can get accountability and justice.
You mentioned the amount of shots. Do you know how many times he was shot?
We do not know.
We have not
Are you
disclosed
going to
that.
have the autopsy results by the time the DA makes his decision? I presume the DA is going to decide today whether or not to.
I would hope that they will have that, but the video is going to tell us a lot. And so we look forward to seeing the video.
And you'll be with the family at 3 o'clock.
We will. And so we'll see the video and then we will have our comments after the video is released.
So what do you attribute the move swiftly to release everything as of right now when they were trying to maintain their delay tactics?
We attribute it to
Mr. Crump, no doubt.
Yeah, no
Where?
question.
Mr. Trump.
No
I mean,
question.
Mr. Crump. I'm sorry, Trump.
Now, public pressure helps. The court of public opinion is very helpful for black and brown and marginalized families to get the same justice that others enjoy without effort.
Absolutely.
So thank you all. We'll keep you updated.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Justice for Leonard.
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 Justice for Leonard.